very nice first heat of junior yearling sows that I think falls together rather logically once we begin to break stuff down and really start to study. I comfortably like to start with entry number 38. And I think the combination female of this particular drive, I think one that offers the appropriate amount of height, the appropriate amount of length to her body and her frame there, and yet fills out incredibly well in terms of her rib shape, in terms of her body composition there. I think she's adequate and very good in terms of her feel and her flesh there. Very appropriate for where we're at this stage of the game there. In terms of her length of stride and step, very good. I think class leader, definitely in terms of comfort level. If you want to get ultra critical on her, you could say, hey, Drake, you've knocked a few others throughout today's show just in terms of width between their hocks or width at the ground going away. And I won't lie, I think we could open that gilt up just a shade as she goes away from us in terms of where her width, in terms of where her hawk wants to sit there within her. I think that's getting critical, though, on one that combines so much good in terms of appropriateness of body condition and couple that with the right amount of comfort level, flexibility, and squareness about that gilt. A very nice place here to start us off with. Entry number 37 is going to go ahead and be our second in this particular heat. That is a sow to me that is intimidating, and I say that as a nice thing. I say that as an interesting thing. She becomes more of a conversation piece than maybe what her class winner does there, because what do you do with her? She's one that's overwhelming in terms of power and spread and dimension, a lot of body, a lot of belly, a lot of forerib, a lot of flank working within that female there. She is stout off every turn and facet of her body there, no two ways about that. Maybe where we struggle just a little bit is getting an accurate read on her. We're in a little bit of taller grass there. We can't maybe get just as good of a read in terms of what her toes and her feet want to do there. As we begin to study her throughout the video there, she wants to labor just a shot more at times on how she wants to pick up and use that shoulder and that front leg whenever we ask her to be in motion. I don't read her just quite as comfortable as what we do that class winner there, but hey, if body and power and spread is your thing with a beautiful hair coat, very well managed, then I would not be afraid to run with that one, because I think the pieces that one has to offer for a breeding program are exceptionally good and very fun to talk about there. Very, very, very good type of gilt there to go in second. Third in this particular heat, we've got entry number 36. And to me, this is a gilt that just wants to fall out of balance just a bit more in terms of the two we find above her. Our first and second in this class, we're able to easily pinpoint a balance point and levelness from the point of their shoulder to the base of their hip there. Level top line, composed. We maybe begin to lose just a little bit of that as we begin to study our entry number 36 gilt here in third. That is a narrower gauge gilt when we get right on top of her and we study the width between her shoulder blade and down her top line there. Not quite as much dimension, not quite as much spread. We get off to the side of her. She wants to break behind her blade. She wants to heave up just a touch in the center portion of her loin, and we don't read her to be just quite as balanced or just quite as tall-shouldered as what we do there. I like the feature. Awesome coloration, awesome breed characteristic in terms of head. Minor details begin to sort when she runs into a very good pair that offer just a bit more balance and composure and a bit more spread and product there. Very nice type of female, though, to end up in third. Fourth here, and rounding out our class, we've got entry 39. Honestly, just a gilt that wants to become just a bit daintier, I guess, in terms of her makeup there. She is the smaller forearm. She's the smallest ankled type of gilt in the class, like we've maybe referred back to in a couple other or a couple other divisions throughout today's female show. I like them to have a sturdy base, whether that comes with a big foot and forearm and ankle, or that just comes with some added width. I read this gilt to be the lesser option in both of those categories. I need to stouten her up just a bit more in terms of her bone work. I need to open her up just a little bit more in terms of her spread there, but comfort level, very nice on that gilt. Structurally, everything hinges and flows correctly there. Just a personal preference. I need that. If we're looking forward to her being a foundation brood sow, I'd like to see her sit down with just a bit more authority and a bit more power when we study where she wants to meet the ground at. Very nice first heat here in your junior yearling sows. Congratulations. Very good heat here in our second heat of our junior yearling sow division there. A lot of good conversation we can have. One of the deeper groups here as a whole, very good in terms of numbers, and I think it's going to make it interesting to discuss our placings. I'm the most comfortable starting off with entry number 44. I'm very captivated by this female just in terms of her range of motion, the angle and set and bend to her hawk when we study her from the side. She's spring-loaded. She's able to take off and go and yet maintain squareness and comfort. She's able to use her shoulder, her ankle, and her front pastern as though she needs to, and yet she still offers some composure about her top line. She offers the appropriate amount of flesh and body condition for where we're at in this stage of the game, and yet still looks like a good Cooney generating sow should in terms of her head and neck and breed characteristic. I really like this female to go ahead and start us off with. Our entry number 41 is going to be second in this class, and I'll be honest with you, this is the conversation piece of this initial drive. That is a beautifully prepared, immaculate type of hair coat on this animal. That is awesome in terms of flesh and feel. She is the power sow of this particular group that we're discussing now. The one that offers the most boldness of rib, the one that offers the most spread up high when we study her upper dimension, and the one that appears to maintain it down low. Now, I'm going to be entirely transparent with you. I wish I could gas up the Gravely lawnmower and peel about 1.5 inches off of our yard here. I'm not quite as comfortable understanding where her feet want to sit within her. At times, we compare her back to our class winner. I read her maybe just a bit more laborsome out of her front third of her body. She wants to kind of throw a shoulder just a little bit whenever she takes a step. I'm not sure what that implies in terms of her footwork, and just to be transparent, I would like to see that and make maybe a bit more of an accurate judgment there to move her up higher, but hey, if an immaculate hair coat and a great breed characteristic look, an added power are right up your wheelhouse, and you're able to say, I'm not entirely confident where her feet are, but I think she's good enough everywhere else we can move her up, I won't argue with you. I think that's a very good type of female there. For me, I need to see just a bit more in terms of foot set before I can move her up any higher. Third in this particular drive is entry number 43, and I think one that patterns up very similar to what our class winner does here, just in terms of a free range of motion out of their shoulder, promptness and added athleticism and motivation to take a step and get out and go. Ultimately, we begin to sort just a bit of structure and comfort here into this third place gilt. We step in, Sal. We step in behind her. She wants to tighten and restrict the most out of her left hock. She wants to stiffen in terms of her joint work. She's not quite as loose hinging, not quite as able to take just as comfortable of a step as the two we found above her there. Allow that gilt to just loosen up a little bit there, maybe give her a softer approach in terms of her angle of her hawk, and maybe square her up just a shade from her pin hook down. I think a very nice type of individual there, one that we just need to allow just a shade more comfort off of a rear skeleton to move her up any higher. Entry number 42 is going to go ahead and be fourth in this division, and I think that is undeniably another one. Great presentation value, immaculate skin and hair, very powerful, very fleshy. To me, this is the gilt that wants to fall out of or sow that wants to fall out of balance in terms of her top line. She wants to break just a little bit behind her shoulders. She wants to steepen just a little bit in terms of her hip set there. She's a bit lower set in terms of her front end elevation, a bit chuffier about the base of her throat and into her crest and neck. Not quite as feminine, I guess, if you will, as maybe a few of the others above her. Not quite as apt or not quite as able to take that added athleticism to the next level that we found in the three above her. But still one we can appreciate a lot about. Maternal in terms of her body shape, great in terms of her underlying quality, very good in terms of her rear leg set. Just need to fix a few things about her in terms of her top line composure and balance to move her up higher. We round out with entry number 40. To me, that's the one here that just becomes the most troublesome, I guess, when we study her at the surface. As she comes to us, she wants to kind of toe out and become a bit indifferent on her foot set there, not the squarest in terms of her knee. We step in behind her, and another one that just kind of wants to a short step and become just a bit more uncoordinated there. Study the angle to her shoulder. She's a bit forward and wants to reach and quick step up front. Allow this gilt to just kind of lay back and relax in terms of her spine and her overall build, and I think we can make that gilt, that sow, just a bit more comfortable in terms of her movement pattern there. But one we can appreciate for sure in terms of fit and condition and feel there. I think everything's very nice in that regard there. I just found this sow to be the one that raises the most questions in terms of squareness and where she's at when we begin to study her at her base. Very good class here all the way through. Congratulations. We arrive at the selection of your champion junior yearling sow and two very good heats that we saw an excellent pair come out of here for contention. And I think, honestly, two sows here that are patterned pretty similar in terms of gilts that are motivated and in terms of their step and comfortable and loose hinging in terms of their type and kind. We could, critique both in one area for sure, and we could say we'd like to see just a little bit more power off the back half of their skeleton, see their hocks face open a bit more, and and leave us with just a bit more width. But ultimately, what sorts the pair, and a very close and quality pair, is the view as the livestock drive directly to us. There's one for me that I'm just more comfortable with in terms of chest width, the angle to their shoulder, and just the width and squareness to their knee. I like for your junior yearling sow champion, entry number 38 to go ahead and start us off with. For reserve, I like entry number 44. That's our other heat winner there, and like we talked there, and like we'll reiterate from what we said in her initial heat there, the angle to her hind leg, just her free-moving, free-flowing athleticism, I think is very impressive for the breed, and yet still maintains some depth of rib and body, appropriate conditions there, and still balanced in her top line. As she comes to us, we don't read her just as bold in terms of her knee or her chest view. We don't read her as square or opened up at the ground in terms of where her front feet meet as her champion, but I thought nonetheless, just based off of her comfort and her skeletal quality, she needed to go ahead and land reserve in this division. Your third overall in this division, I like entry number 41, and like we talked in that video, there's some unknowns about this female in terms of her foot quality, or in terms of what we're working with at the surface there. But I thought in terms of just upper skeletal dimension, in terms of just comfort level, from what we can tell there, her reach and her comfort and her stride was I thought that much better than our other second place contender there. Like we've talked this female originally, that is a power sow. I mean, that is a unique one in terms of rib and depth of body and flank, and just boldness from the tip of her nose to the back half of her tail there. She's stout every which angle there. I thought she was too unique to leave out of our initial our top three considerations there. Very good division here. Congratulations.